Welcome to another episode of Mixed Media Monday. I'm Eric Scott, and today I wanted to do something a little bit different. And let me explain a little bit where this came from. So this past week, I have been teaching a high school art program, a 2-week summer program, and I was experimenting around with some ideas, and I hit upon something that I really felt like, oh, I want to share this. And it has the roots in the idea of mindful mark making. And so I want to share some of that. And one of the big things, one of my big takeaways from kind of experimenting with this is the idea of embracing the wonky. And I realized that even whenever I'm trying to like relax, that like my body feels like it's like has a lot of energy in it, and just like this kind of nervous energy. And as I was kind of creating some of these marks, I realized that like I can't do like a perfect mark. And perfectionism has been something that I have aimed for a long time. And oftentimes with my art, I get really caught up in sort of working very tightly. And so this was a way to get a little bit more present in the work and not worry so much about like trying to be perfect. And so anyway, I just thought I'd go ahead and share some of that with you today. So let me go ahead and switch it over, and I'm using some of the same materials, but things are a little bit different. So let me go ahead and switch this over, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I've got paper. This time though, I've got 6x8 paper, and this came straight out of a 6x8 tablet. I've got my Faber-Castell Pitt artist pens. I've got my different paints. I've got some brushes, and in my bag over here, I've got some of my Inktense pencils that I'll end up using. So with this, I was just kind of like sitting down. I was trying to find a way to just take a moment and breathe, and take a moment and sort of just kind of relax. And what I started doing is I started using one of these pens to create spirals. And so when I do this, I'm going to start spirals, and the idea is that my elbow is off the table, and this is kind of where that wonkiness comes, because I'm going to hold the pen straight up and down, or as straight up and down as I can. And then I'm trying to keep my elbow off the table so that when I start the spirals, all I'm trying to do is to go slowly. And I'm trying to stay as close as I can as I go around. And the idea of the mindful mark making is that I'm trying to be mindful. I'm trying to like stay present with the spiral making. Now it's a little bit hard now because I'm talking while I'm doing it, but as I go around and around, my lines are crooked, they're jagged, even when I was being more mindful. So of course, talking sort of takes me out of that mind frame, but just kind of want to share. So when you're doing this, you could kind of do this, kind of do it with maybe some relaxing music or no music at all. And the idea is just to kind of feel the mark making. And what I felt was like I just let my shoulders drop. Like I just felt myself relax as I was doing it. And so I just go around and around. And then I just kind of pick when I want to stop. And then I'm going to move on. Now I'm using the extra super fine pen that I have. So I have the thinnest pen. And then I'm just going to do this again. And I do this several times throughout the whole paper. And it's not about going fast. It's not about getting it done. It's about going slowly and carefully. And if the lines bump each other or they touch, that's okay. If it wobbles and goes crooked, that's okay too. And often when I do this, I try to focus on my breath and just sort of allow myself to relax Again, a little bit more difficult whenever I'm trying to explain things and talk about it. All right, and then just decide when to stop. And I'm going to do that several times. And I tend to like make the spirals go in different directions. So it's like, do I make it go to the left? Do I make it go to the right when I start out? Again, it's about going slowly. And my elbows up off the table. I'm just trying to use my whole arm as I go around and around. And this spiral might go a little bit oblong shape. That's fine too. Okay, and I think I'll come up here. And so I'm trying to get different sizes as I'm going. And though the focus is on being more mindful, I am still kind of thinking about the composition and how I'm spacing these spirals out. Okay, when I feel like I've got enough, then I'm going to switch pens, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now I have a super fine, so this is a little bit thicker, and I'm going to let the spirals overlap. So I'm going to start out here where there is no spiral, but then let it get bigger and bigger. And it's the same thing. It's just going slowly, slow but steady. And you can focus on taking like deep, long breaths, feeling yourself kind of relax, letting your shoulders relax, letting your neck relax. And so with this, I want it to be big enough where it starts to overlap the other spirals. And so that notion that the spirals are not even, they're not perfect, they have their own character. Now, when I get to an edge, I can stop and pick up my pen and kind of allow that spiral to continue and go off the edge. The interesting thing is that these start to look a little bit like topography. Thinking about topography maps, topographic maps. And so just like before, I want to go ahead and spread those out. You can do as many or as few spirals as you want. You don't even have to do spirals. You could use other shapes. But the idea is to kind of let it flow. That's why spirals are so good, because you can just keep going and going and going. Okay. So I've got some random spirals throughout, and if I wanted to, I have a third pen. I could do more, but maybe I'll come back later. We'll see. So I'm going to switch to the painting, and I'm still trying to be very mindful. And so I think I want to start off with some bigger marks. So I'm going to take a bigger brush, and I think maybe I'll stick with some blues today. And what I'm going to do is I'm kind of mindful mark. So something that I can repeat. So kind of these dash-like marks, just doing vertical. When I think of mindful mark making, I think of something that takes a while, something that's repetitive. If you think about meditation, meditation is often about breathing. So even with this, you can sort of think about like, well, how many strokes per breath? Is it one stroke per breath? But I'm really trying to think just about the marks as I make them. I'm not worrying about where I put them. I'm not worried about what is this going to look like in the end. So I could do little dash marks, I could do lines, I could do dots. So some of the marks are a little thin or a little short, some are a little bit longer. And I'm just trying to keep a nice steady rhythm. Yeah, I have to reload my brush, but that becomes part of the rhythm. But I'm not rushing to fill this whole space. Actually, I'm going to leave some emptiness. Okay, so I'm going to change it up. I'm going to go to more of a liner brush, a little bit longer of bristles, a little bit thinner. I'm going to use a slightly different blue. I'm going to use a turquoise now. I'm trying to load the brush up because what I want to do now is I do want to maybe draw some or paint some long, thin lines, maybe go in different directions. And when the brush first starts out, the line's going to be darker. It's going to fade as the paint is getting used up. So I'm kind of going back and forth. And if a line didn't draw all the way, I can always go back over it. maybe space it out a little bit. Again, I'm trying to keep my elbow up off the table. And so the lines are not straight. Some are, it gets a little fat in areas, a little thin in areas. Okay. Rinse that out. And then I think I'm going to go back to the big brush. I want a darker blue. So I've got this nice dark blue. I think with this, I'm just going to kind of tap it and let it dance around. If I want, I can dip it into the water, thin it down, make more of a wash. So even though this is a little bit more organic, a little more free form, I'm still trying to keep that rhythm. Oops, almost got the wrong color. And I'm not trying to fill the whole space in. I'm going to purposefully leave some white showing, make it a little bit uneven, irregular. Okay, so that's looking pretty good with all the blues. Let me go ahead and dry this because I want to use some of my Inktense pencils as well. So hit it with my hair dryer. And of course, if I turn it over and hit it with hair dryer on the back, it flattens it out a little bit. And so I'm gonna pull out. I'm gonna stick with the blue. So this is gonna be kind of monochromatic, using different kinds of blues. This is called deep blue, and I want to stick with that sort of wonkiness. And again, my elbow, even though you can't see it, my elbow's off the table. That way I can move my hand around. I could kind of go flowy, but I'm thinking I want to do some squares, maybe bring a little bit of structure to this. So maybe it goes off the edge, but again, my elbow's off the table. And so as I'm doing this, I'm just drawing them slowly and steadily, not not thinking too much about it. And then just like I've done before, I'm going to shade a little bit around those lines. But I'm allowing those rectangles just to be a little, I like that word, wonky. A little bit crooked, uneven, more natural. Just this is a great way to sort of embrace the imperfect. And I'm not getting caught up in like, oh, it has to be this way or that way. And I think I want to have maybe a bigger rectangle over here. Okay. So it's a little hard to see, but once I add some water, I think it's going to really bring it out. So even as I'm spreading the water around, I'm just trying to be mindful, doing it slow and steady, allowing it to be what it wants to be, not trying to control it too much. Allowing the rectangles to be uneven. And just kind of celebrating that hand-drawn feel of it all. So those rectangles kind of start to tie things together, bring things together, give it a little bit of structure, make some darker values. And I'll go ahead and hit it with my hair dryer. Okay, I feel like I do want to use my thickest pen here. So this is the fine pen. And I think I just want a few more spirals. And just like with the other spirals, just kind of trying to slow and steady, but not too slow. And then kind of end it when I want to. Okay. So that's looking kind of cool. I'm liking how that's turning out. I'm going to turn now to a white gel pen. And I don't know how well this will show up. There's not a lot of like super dark values, but I've got some. So maybe just kind of thinking about little dashes. So that kind of plays with those dashed kind of brush strokes I did earlier. Again, just kind of like that notion of repetition, rhythm. Going slow and steady. And like I said, even though I'm trying to be more mindful and not focus too much on the composition, I am kind of thinking about how the marks are filling up the space, thinking about, spreading this stuff out so it really is all over. And I'm really thinking about the whole paper, but that's not the main objective of this. But despite that, by putting all those marks in there, I've got something different than I've done before, something completely non-objective, just using a few materials. And I'm kind of thinking that this is done. So go ahead and sign it. And just something a little bit different, a little bit bigger, and using those mindful marks. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed kind of doing something a little bit different or seeing something a little bit different. This is a great way to just relax if you need to. I think there's always been this benefit that people have known about art, whether the adult coloring books or Zentangle or things like that. And I think just those are all kind of mindful mark making things that you can do. It's a great way to just sort of like calm down, relax, get a little bit of focus. Um, but it can all add up to some cool pieces of art. So I hope that you enjoyed that. And I really appreciate you joining me once again for Mixed Media Monday. And yeah, I'll see you next week. And as always, happy creating.